Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 30 in the Practices book, Fixing Things Once, page 541. So the whole concept of fixing it once kind of works for like automobiles. Like you don't want to go in and have somebody show up and say, you know, my radiator broke, and the next guy comes in, my radiator broke. Somebody sooner or later is going to say, we're sure is having an awful lot of leaking radiators. Maybe we ought to go back to the manufacturer and get this fixed once and for all, rather than us handling it here at our level. That's kind of what it's all about. Okay, so there's a shaded box talking about the Solaris. Solaris is an older version of Unix run on Sun microsystems. So after a reboot, their environmental variables didn't get set, and it was causing problems. So every time you had to reboot the machine, you had to go back in and tweak these environmental variables. And it was kind of annoying, but not really that big of a deal. So you could create what's called a profile that would set these things so when the server rebooted, it wouldn't have to remember, it would remember for you. But you don't typically just start. So that's a solution, is to automate this thing and use a system that was already existing called profiles, and you're good. Another thing would be, don't just create the profile from scratch. Go grab a prototype of one that already exists, and all you have to do is tweak one line or two lines in there that set these environmental variables. And then don't just fix it for the system administrators, fix it for everyone. So that's the point. So fix it once, and then corollary A is fix the problem permanently so that when you reboot, it's all still going to work. Corollary B is don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody already has a prototype, use that. And corollary C is fix it for everyone. Okay. So temporary fixes on page 543. There was some quote, I'm sure I'll get it wrong, about nothing is permanent as a temporary fix. I'm sure I screwed that up, but anyway. So sometimes temporary fix is all you can do. Maybe it's too expensive, or take way too much time, or terribly inconvenient, and therefore I'm just going to wait until the next maintenance windows to do it right. That sound okay? If you can remember to fix it. Otherwise, it's just going to stay a temporary fix forever, right? So yeah, you need to be on your toes. So you're going to have to document this thing. Pledging to go back and fix it right the next time isn't enough. It's going to have to be on your to-do list somewhere. In my case, I had like a chalkboard or something that would tell me, don't forget to do this. Maybe a lot of people just use email, even email to themselves, saying, hey, next maintenance window, don't forget to do this. Don't just put it on a scrap of paper, because you get hit by a bus, no one's going to remember what it is you did and why you didn't do the permanent fix. Okay, so, and they go on and talk about, temporary fixes are kind of emotionally rewarding. I mean, you get a thrill for getting it fixed, woohoo! And so don't fall in that trap of immediate gratification and going, wow, I just fixed the problem, woohoo! No, you need to do it right. So the staying late story on page 544. This guy was operating a mailing list. Don't worry about what that is. Basically, people would subscribe or unsubscribe to this email that would go out periodically, let's say once a week. And every once in a while, somebody would say, yeah, I'd like to subscribe to this email, and here's my email address. Subscribe to this mailing list. Here's my email address, and their email address wouldn't work. And you go, that's a little weird. So you'd have to kind of contact them and say, or attempt to contact them if you don't have an email address, and wait for them to maybe submit a second one or something. And so there was an awful lot of energy involved in cleaning up this list. After you automated it, though, it still took too much time. The guy was spending an hour or two a day going through all this stuff. And so to break the cycle, to give him enough time to fix it right the first time, he basically had to just let it go for a couple of days. Maybe just don't bother doing that for a week to give me enough time to catch up on all my stuff so I can finally find and fix the real problem. So yeah, you have to kind of sacrifice to grant you some time to be able to do this. Okay, so running scripts, particularly for a startup script for a server of some sort. If there's a mistake in there, the only real way to find out is to reboot the server and see if it worked. Wow. There's no other way. If it's a startup script, how else are you going to test it? You don't really know. And if you screw it up, It could be your server won't reboot at all. Okay, just say. So there's a thing, a shaded area on page 545, talking about the permanent configuration settings. So in the old days, we had configuration settings scattered all over the place in individual INI files. And then finally, Microsoft said, let's just put this in a hierarchical database. And that's when the registry was born. And so everything is centrally located. It's all in one place. Everyone has access to it. And it permanently stores settings so that when you reboot, I don't have to think about it. Okay, good. Okay, Carpenter analogy, one more time. Page 545. So, measure twice, cut once. And the guy even says, people have been doing carpentry a lot longer than we've been doing computers. So we need to learn from these guys. So, yeah. So a lot of companies, when they're like building a house, maybe they're building joists to go up on a roof, they'll build a little jig, a little thing that allows them to slap this piece of wood in, slap this piece of wood and cut it precisely. It's already at the correct angles. They put the brace, they hammer things, are making stair treads. They're all exactly identical with the exact same angles, the exact same length and everything. And so build a little jig that does this. That's how they get improved efficiency, is by building a little jig to do things. Because we're producing duplicate parts over again. Well, that's the philosophy we need to do as well. There's a shaded area there. I'm going to kind of sort of demonstrate this. I'm going to just go to Notepad. So in the old day, in the Unix days, you would type like rm and then *.o. Okay, so that would remove everything that had a .o extension. But what happens if I accidentally type that? Ooh, now I deleted everything. Okay, because there's space there. Okay, that's bad. That's really bad. And so one of the things that a lot of people would do is, before they did a remove on something, they would do what's in the Unix world, it's called echo. Echo, and you look at it and you go, whoa, that's not what I wanted. And you go, oh, wait, let me fix that. Okay, and so after you've done like a prototype, it's sort of like a dry run. So the echo command is like, I'm getting ready to do something dangerous here. I'm getting ready to delete some stuff, but let me just make sure I'm deleting what I absolutely, positively think I'm deleting. So the echo, and once you're happy with echo, then you go back over here and you type remove. And now you're removing what it is you're supposed to be removing. Okay. The whole concept of a dry run. You can do this I do this in a database. Let's say I'm getting ready to write, I don't know, a delete command in SQL, delete such and such, such and such from such and such where, blah, 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 blah. And I'm getting ready to hit the button and I go, I wonder if I got this exactly right. I tell you what, let's go up to this delete command and change that to select. And I hit the button and I go, yep, that's exactly what I want deleted. And then I go back and erase the word select and put the word delete in and hit the button. That's how you do this, guys. Okay. There's a thing that some people call it copy exact. That's a term where there's no need to reinvent the wheel. For example, if I have a series of scripts that I've developed for a server, and it works just perfectly for me, but I just installed 3 new servers, well, for God's sake, just copy those scripts over to the other 3 servers. Okay, don't start over from scratch. That way you have exact copies of all these things in all the locations. It's a way to standardize the scripts so they run. There's an advice line in here. It's kind of cool. It basically says, stop doing things that don't work. Yeah, okay, that's kind of cute. So another example of having this copy exact is, how long does it take to get a nuclear power plant through the regulatory bodies here in the U.S.? Quite a long time. They have to have inspectors on site. They have to go through everything. But in France, they decided that we were going to standardize every single nuclear power plant is going to be absolutely identical, carbon copy of the other. And so they built 56 absolutely identical plants. Well, since they're identical, how long does it take for the inspector to go through and see how things are doing? A couple of days. How long does it take for the regulatory commission to approve the provisioning of the plant and turning it on? A heck of a lot shorter period of time it takes in the U.S., because ours, each individual utility supplier did their own design. Okay. So less expensive to design because I only have to design it once. Less expensive to build because I've got some economies of scale. And then faster regulatory review. Oh yeah. So having this copy exact thing is probably makes sense. Okay, automation on page 547. So, there's an old saying in the Windows world, and that is, well, if it doesn't work, just reboot your machine and we'll see if that works afterwards. Man, that is not fixing the problem. That is fixing the symptom. We need to get away from making the symptom go away is not the same thing as fixing. So, beware of an automatic fix for symptoms, right? For example, let's say the reason why that my machine was blowing up is because I was running out of log space for my log files. I don't know that. All I know is rebooting my machine fixes it. No, it just means it's going to come back over and over and over until you finally stop and fix the dang problem rather than the symptom. So how long do you keep log files, and where do you archive them and compress them, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's an awful lot of problems that basically cannot be automatically fixed. There are some exceptions, like, for example, swapping resources in a VM. If I'm running out of CPU in a VM, I can just assign more space, more resources to it. That kind of works. But in a physical world, no, that doesn't work. Okay, the make file is shaded area on page 548. If you're a developer, you kind of sort of know what this is. There's a command line tool called MS Build. And so I would write my application, and then I could click on this thing, and it built a script for me. I didn't have to write this, guy. It built a script for me that went through and figured out, okay, here are all the files that need to be compiled, and here's how we do all this stuff. And it only will compile the things that need to be compiled. In other words, if it has 15 moving parts, but I only changed one of them, when I click on MS Build, it's going to go, well, let me see. Okay, this is the only one that needs this. And so it's going to compile that piece and then move on. So this bit of automation speeds up the system. I don't have to keep track of what file I changed and which ones I did not change. That's what automation is for. It does it all for me, okay? So it only compiles the things that it needs, so it speeds things up, right? And so programmers don't have to keep track of things. All right, so this is the end of a very small chapter. And I'll see you guys again in the next chapter.